Welcome to Introduction to Risk-Based Inspection, presented by AssetWise Ivoire Performance Management, Part 2. Introduction to Risk-Based Inspection, Rbi Assessment Process. The key elements to Rbi assessments include management systems for maintaining documentations, personnel qualification, inspection data requirements, and analysis update, documented method for probability of a failure and consequence of failure assessment, documented methodology for managing risk through the inspection and other mitigation activities. According to API 580, which is the American Petroleum Institute Risk-Based Inspection Recommended Practice guideline, following information about an Rbi assessment need to be documented. Type of the assessments, team members performing the assessment, time frame over which the assessment is applicable, the input and sources used to determine risk, assumptions made during the assessment, the risk assessment result including information or probability and consequences, follow-up mitigation strategy if applicable to manage the risk, the mitigated risk level, or in other words, the residual risk after mitigation is implemented, and references to codes or standards that have jurisdictions over extent or frequency of the inspection. As a general rule, a practitioner should be able to repeat the analysis from the documentation without consulting an individual originally involved in the Rbi study. Rbi process steps, again according to the API 580, includes understanding the design, planning for Rbi assessment, collecting data and information, identifying damage mechanism and failure modes, assessing the probability of a failure, assessing the consequence of a failure, risk determination, assessment and management, risk management with inspection activities and process control, reassessment and updating, and also identifying roles, responsibilities, training, and required qualification, and eventually documentations and record keeping. Rbi assessment results in a logical and structured process for planning and evaluating inspection activities for pressure equipment. In performing an Rbi assessment, the susceptibility of equipment to damage by one or more mechanisms, such as corrosion, fatigue, or cracking, is evaluated. This flow diagram shows an overall Rbi assessment process recommended by API 580. All elements shown in this process are essential for a complete program, regardless of the analysis approach. A logical progression of risk analysis begins with data and information collection. These steps include collecting and validating necessary data and information, identifying damage mechanism, and optionally determining the damage modes for each mechanism, such as general metal loss, local metal loss, beating, and determines damage susceptibility and corrosion rate. The second step is risk assessment. This step determines damage credible failure modes, for example, a small leak, large leak rupture, determines the probability over a defined time frame for each damage mechanism, identifies the credible consequence scenario that will result from failure modes, and determines the probability of each consequence scenario, considering the probability of a failure and the probability of a specific consequence scenario which will result from that failure. After the risk assessment is the risk ranking step. Risk ranking the equipment by unmitigated risk level allow users to assign priorities to various inspection tasks. The level of unmitigated risk should be used to evaluate the urgency for performing the inspection. Risk ranking is followed by inspection planning. The primary product of an Rbi effort should be an inspection plan for each evaluated equipment. If inspection is a cost-effective mean for risk management for this equipment, plans should describe the type, scope, and timing of the recommended inspections. Inspection is often an effective method of risk management. However, it may not always provide sufficient mitigation or be a cost-effective method. In this case, some risk mitigation activities may be required, such as reducing the magnitude of the consequence, reducing the probability of a failure, enhancing the survivability of the facility and people to that consequence, mitigate the primary source of the consequence. Risk changes with time. It is vital that any Rbi process that is developed or selected for a specific application has the ability to be easily updated when new information is discovered. These changes can also include the changes to the inspection plan. It is important to maintain and update an Rbi program to ensure that the most recent inspection, process, and maintenance information are included. The result of inspection changes in the process conditions and implementation of maintenance practices. And these all can have significant effects on risk. Therefore, the result of finding of an inspection and any changes to that inspection plan can trigger the need to perform a reassessment for the Rbi analysis. Rbi assessment process elements can be mapped on APM business process as well. You can refer to APM Overview On-Demand Training Unit 2.0 to 2.5 for more details about APM business processes. But for short examples, we can review the APM analysis. For example, the strategy development phase can involve defining asset integrity management strategy and business risk targets. After that, reliability program implementation will consider the asset integrity data collection, defining corrosion loops, conducting criticality and confidence analysis, and also defining the asset integrity action plans. The performance management step will include defining the inspection and monitoring activities. Following that, the work management will take care of executing those inspection tasks. And the result of those inspections may lead to analysis review and follow-up actions and also any feedback to update the strategy. Rbi assessment is a team effort, and it's done by a multidisciplinary team. It's not the sole responsibility for an inspector or metal and corrosion engineer. Rbi assessment team typically consists of inspectors, operators, technologists or process engineers, material and corrosion engineer, and inspection and maintenance engineer for the unit that is under Rbi assessment. I invite you to learn more about risk-based inspection in part 3 of this training modules, reviewing Rbi assessment in APM, criticality and confidence assessment, and corrosion loop definition.